Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be looking at the brand new Jack Wolf Knives Bionic. This particular version is a Knife Center exclusive. Seth over there at Knife Center collaborated with Ben Belkin of Jack Wolf Knives with his input on how he wanted it set up, and I think he did a fantastic job. This particular one has a beautiful hand rub satin finish on it. Talk about an attractive finish, and those hand rub satin finishes perform really well as long as it has good blade geometry, and we already know Jack Wolf knives have fantastic cutting geometry. You got a nice beautiful top swedge that thins out that tip just a little bit, but you still have a fairly robust tip there. You have a full height hollow grind, and this one is in CPM S90V steel. Tested quite a bit of Jack Wolf's S90V, and I've been more than impressed. You do have some jumps up top that definitely grip the finger nicely, but if you choke up, of course, there's nothing up here. You got a fuller on both sides of the blade that you can use for deployment. We'll check that out a little bit later. You have a sharpening choil that should give you a good bit of sharpening light before it'll think about widening at the heel right here. Well, even though this is a purdy blade, I'm sure it still performs really well. Let's find out. Yeah, this knife came with a fantastic edge straight out of the box from factory, and as soon as I got done with the cardboard cutting, I was so impressed by how well it was slicing that I had to go pull measurements behind the edge, and my suspicions were correct. This one is around 11 thousandths behind the edge, especially in the straight edge portion, and it is like a hot knife through butter. You have definitely enough straight edge. That belly is kind of canted down some, like below the handle, and it makes doing in-hand cuts easy. Now we're not going to get too crazy, especially now that I know that this thing is, 11 and 12 thousandths behind the edge. So I just want to see how that edge wants to bite into the wood, making feathers very easy. I'm not going to do too much torquing on it. I've learned my lesson with some other knives. They're not made for that. So if it had some sort of failure, I wouldn't blame it on the knife at all, because that is nice and thin. You buy I enjoy these because of how well they slice. That is the main reason why I carry the slip joints, and these locking versions, I love them for that as well. The edge has some bite to it when we get to this 1/2-inch sisal rope. One thing I did notice, and it's probably just the way I cut, but you can see what's contacting the board of that belly, because you have that straight edge and you have that swoop up right toward the end, and you can see I'm not getting all the way through sometimes, and it's because I have a small surface area of that actual apex contacting the material at the bottom. So, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's just me, the way I'm cutting. If I would have cut a little bit in front of the belly, it would have probably made it a lot easier. But this is just the most natural, the way I grip the knife. And it's still doing great, but sometimes I push harder because I was thinking, it wasn't as sharp as I thought it was. And the blade would bury deep into this dense rubber cutting mat that I have. So yeah, definitely enjoyed it. I already knew it would perform good. I haven't had a Jack Wolf that wasn't a super slicer, and that's why I love them so much. So yeah, easy. It should be fairly easy to do cuts on a flat cutting surface. You may want to adjust the way you cut if that's what you do. If you do a lot of this, just so you're not getting like me where it's starting from that straight edge into the belly, and that way you'll have more cutting edge onto whatever material you're cutting. So definitely, look, I think I cut 3 because I was like, wow, I didn't even think I cut it until I looked down and I had 3 pieces already separated. Yeah, everything I put in front of it, it is a slicing machine. I tried to use closer to that tip just to see how I was slicing. It did well, and I was trying to make sure I didn't bury that tip into my cutting board because I don't want to snap it. And I'm noticing that same thing here with the 10-ounce denim. It's not going all the way through because I'm just using that belly portion. And like I said, just change up the way you're cutting it. I just didn't realize it till after I got done with everything. But fantastic job like always. Lots of fun. Now let's talk about the action and deployment of this knife. You have a front flipper with nice and grippy jimping up here, and you have those fullers. The detent on this is dialed to perfection, and being that this is a bolster lock, I don't have to worry about putting my finger on that lock bar, creating extra tension. So the front flipper, it sits a little proud of the top of this side of the bolster. It works fantastic, and I'm not always the best front flipper. And once again, being this is a bolster lock, I'm not grabbing on that lock bar, so I can't do the reach around. Very nice and smooth action. Not a complete drop shut, but that is a very light blade, so I really didn't expect it to. The fullers on this variation are nice and sharp enough to where I can do a thumb flick easily. And of course, I can put my fingernail in there and rocket it out. You don't even have to use the fuller. You can actually use the bottom portion of that hollow grind and just put a little pressure on it. But I prefer to use the fuller. You can use your fingernail, but this one definitely has a silky smooth action. Riding on ceramic ball bearings with a ceramic detent ball. Let's close it up. You have single flute double-ended titanium bolsters with a dark blasted finish on the tie. You have a Torx T10 for your pivot, and on your cover screws, you have a Torx T8. Very high quality screws. Look at that. Look how crisp those Torx heads are. They're all titanium. And on this one, you have a dark blasted finish for the pivot, and your cover screws are the blurple color for the covers. These stunning covers here are actually a special type of titanium called crystallized titanium. And that finish you see is how they come. And then you can anodize it whatever color. But if you remove that anodization, that finish is not going anywhere. I've always thought it was a cool material. I've seen Michael Gavko use it a good bit. Kaiser's used it recently. And I think the original color on this was a vibrant blue, but with my hand oils, it's more like a blurple. It changes colors to like a purple, a blurple, and then you can see the hues of blue. I like it. And if you want to see the actual color, if you look underneath that pocket clip, you can see the actual color, that blue color. Your back spring has a brushed satin finish to give some contrast to that dark blasted titanium frame, along with the top of this pocket clip to match the back spring. And then this ball groove has that dark blast in it like the bolsters, along with the sides, giving it a very rich contrast. I absolutely love the way that looks. And if you decide you want to take this pocket clip off and carry this in a slip or something, the filler tab on this one has that satin finish on the top, and then just like on the pocket clip, the sides have that dark blasted finish. Just some amazing attention to detail there. On this particular variation, I found that it goes in and out of the pocket nicely, got enough ramp for my jeans, and being that it's on this smoother surface, it's okay that this one has a good bit of tension. You kind of want that so it doesn't come flying out of your pocket. It's not deep carry, but it does sit fairly deep, as you can see, and I think that looks very classy sitting out of the pocket. You also have a place to grab a hold to retrieve it out of your pocket so it doesn't come flying out of your hands when you do. This one's coming in at 92.7 grams or 3.269 ounces. Perfect. Talk about the ergos real quick. I know we discussed a little bit of it probably during the testing, but for the most part, this handle's very comfortable because of the way it arcs down like this, and then it kind of flares out right there. It follows the natural curvature of my palm. You can choke all the way up to that edge if you need to get some nice fine control detail stuff. Saber grip's comfortable, hammer grip's comfortable. I mean, I don't know why you'd ever do the reverse gas station knife fight grip, but it's comfortable as well. Even your pull cuts, it's probably the most unnatural to pull cuts, but you could definitely get it done. The pinch grip, very comfortable. Now, Everything I did, it was extremely comfortable. Whenever I got to the wood and I started, getting a little bit more pressure into the wood, I was choked back a little bit, not all the way up there like I was before. And the only thing I noticed whenever I started really bearing down is the tip right here where it's meeting this bolster. You can see they even rounded over that tip, but whenever I was squeezing hard, that my finger was falling in between this section of the bolster lock and this. So it wasn't the most comfortable, but as soon as I started feeling that, I crept my fingers up like that, and that completely avoided the issue. So in my opinion, it's a moot point. The lockup on my knife, I'd say, is around, 30% or so. Access to the lock bar, even though it is flush with the show side scale, the chamfer's deep enough to where I can get my finger in there pretty easily. I could also use the fat of my thumb. No problems for me, but if you had fat sausage fingers, maybe that would give you an issue. I'm not too sure. The lockup on this, very tight. I expected it to have more flex. Now, of course, it's going to have flex side to side because this is a blade that's ground nice and thin and the stock's not super thick, but no movement in the pivot area at all, and that's what I'm looking for. Now for some quick size comparisons, and before the Bionic, the largest Jackwolf model that I know of is the Benny. Sorry if I mess up the names on these, it's hard to remember all of them. And I think this is the sharpshooter jack. This is the locking version. It's just a hair bigger than the Benny, and it's bigger than the sharpshooter. I really struggled to find something exactly the same size, and the regular combo pulsar is the closest I could find in overall length, and it's a little bit larger than the Hogue knives at Deca. And it's smaller than the Ontario Rat 1 and bigger than the Ontario Rat 2. Smaller than the Spyderco PM2, bigger than the Para 3. And lastly, it's about identical in length to the Volsteed Raccoon, and it's a good bit bigger than the Civivi Elementum. Now, nitpicks and complaints. When it comes to jimping, even though this jimping works perfectly fine, I always prefer finer cut jimping. I find it to be more comfortable and just as effective, if not more effective. And maybe bring the jimping out a little bit further, so when you're choked up right here, you still have something. Not something that bothers me, but I know it does bother some people. There's no lefty love here. Doesn't bother me once again, but, looking after my lefties out there. And I don't really know what you could do here. At that sharp spot from the tip of that cover right there from, where it intersects with the bolster. But like I said, once I cheated up a little bit, I completely missed it, and it was a moot point for my hands. Now, this is a very premium knife with great tolerances, lots of finishing work, high-end materials, S90V. You have crystallized titanium, proper heat treat on the steel. Pretty much an heirloom quality knife, and I can promise you, all this stuff is probably done by hand, all the satin finish on all the flats, so all that stuff takes time. If you can't afford this, I'm not saying go out and, spend your last dollar. But if the price is right for you and nothing I talked about is a deal breaker for you and you like the overall aesthetics of this knife, then I think you will absolutely love this knife. Even though this isn't my particular favorite blade shape to use on a daily basis, I still absolutely love the Bionic. This Knife Center exclusive is coming in at $360, a little bit more expensive because of the crystallized titanium being a little bit more expensive. The other variations are absolutely sick as usual. So if you're looking for a high-end piece that you could possibly hand down to generations to come with premium materials, great action, outstanding performance, then this would make an exceptional piece to add to your collection. Let me know your thoughts on the Bionic. I would love to hear your thoughts on this crystallized titanium. Would you like to see it more often, or are you not a fan? Well, that's going to do it for today's video, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you enjoy knife and gear content and you're not already, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you. And until next time, remember, keep those blades sharp. Smile more. Hey.